Hey guys, my name's Ashley and I created Vestige for the Gemma 4 Dev Challenge, which is an Android application designed to basically be my ADHD brain tracker for all the little voice note drop-ins. I didn't want a journaling app. I didn't need it to tell me how great I am. I hear that enough from Claude and ChatGPT. I don't need to hear it anymore. So it's really the app that I wanted for myself that was perfect for Gemma because it keeps the privacy on device, which means I can record anything that I want to, and when I accidentally say that thing that I most definitely didn't mean to say out loud, then I don't have to wonder which cloud provider now has information that they probably shouldn't. So yeah, let's walk through this. I am going to attempt to record and string all of this together, but you guys are going to have to forgive me with my terrible recording skills. We will learn as we go. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do is turn on airplane mode because I already have the device preloaded, or the model preloaded. So it doesn't need network at all. Let me get into settings. There we go. So there's 3 different personas. Witness is kind of the default that doesn't do much besides observe and maybe ask a question. The model stats are here. We have Gemma 4. I chose the E4B, which is a little bit large for this device. I do have the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra with 12 gigs of RAM, so it is capable of it. It just runs slower than what I would like. I also have embedding Gemma here, which I will explain why that is. There's a very good reason to have that on there. And the network gate is sealed by default, so the only time that ever opens is when you're actively downloading these models during onboarding. But like I said, I've got all of that done and set up with demo data already. So let's see what this does. I will allow the permissions. Alright, so this is going to be my first voice note, and what I haven't told the audience is how much I absolutely despise recording demos. I hate being on camera. I don't want anything to do with it, but we are going to do this anyway because my brilliant self decided that I needed an Android app for a change. There we go. So you can see it's reading the entry now, and this always takes the longest the first time that it runs. After that, the pre-warm-up is done, and it's going to go a little bit quicker as long as the app is still running, so you can drop as many voice notes as you want in a row. But this is going to be the foreground runner here. And all that does is give you the follow-up from the witness, which is the persona that we had selected. And it's also going to give the live transcript. So you can see that that is here. And there's also the extracting going on in the background. So as soon as this kicks off, it's going to run a 3-lens comparison and resolver in the back, which, well, I was going to say we'll let it run, but that's all right. It's ready for us now. So what this 3-lens read does is it sends 3 sequential calls to Gemma 4 in the background after you record. One of them takes a literal stance against the transcript, one takes inferential, and one is the skeptic that's going to try to prove you wrong. I did put raw model output in here, so you can click to expand that if you want and see kind of drill down details. What we have here is a consensus across 2 different surfaces. One is behavior, one is vocabulary. A consensus means that at least 2 of the 3 lenses agreed on the output. Candidate means that there was only one of them that could agree, and depending upon which surface it is, some take precedence over others. All that's in the documentation. The repeat here that's ambiguous is because it couldn't match a pattern for this particular day sort of entry template, which it's assigned as a brain dump. And you get a list of different observations as far as what the LLM thought was the most important out of what you said, as well as different tags, so that makes the patterns surface in the background. So we can go look at those here. We can see there's 7 vestiges, and the name means a trace of something left behind. So all the little things that I forget, those become vestiges. And what Gemma is truly doing behind the scenes is identifying patterns across time. So it's not just a voice demo app. It's drop the voice note and then tell me what it is that I don't realize I'm actively doing over time. So by default, this is going to go back 30 days, which is the little graphs that you can see in the UI. So we can see, according to this data, there is a pattern of stalling on Friday evenings. That was saw in exactly 3 entries, the last one being a couple days ago, I think. And you need at least 3 to make a pattern. So if there's not at least 3 different entries here, it's not even going to surface that at all. Once you click to go inside, you can see, get back to the specific entries. So this takes us back to the detail view that we were just looking at, and you can see exactly what it is that contributed to this specific pattern. Same thing, it's going to identify words that you used. For the specific pattern itself, so for this Friday evening, I can choose to drop it completely. And if we go back to the primary page, that's going to move it into a different dropped category here. I can also choose to skip this, which is sort of like a snooze. You can come back to it in like 7 days, I believe. Or I can restart either one of these, which is just another way to help you keep track and organize. And there's also the concept of closed that I want to work into the next version, where the LLM will automatically close patterns that are no longer relevant for you. So most of these are templates. So part of what Gemma does in the background is assigns a templated context for the voice note that you dropped into the app. Originally, I wanted the user to select those up front, and as soon as I used it, I hated it, and I'm like, I am never going to do that. It defeats the entire purpose of the app. So I took those out, but kept the logical assignments for categorization behind the scenes. It's just now that Gemma does it for you, so you don't have to pick. Yeah, but that is pretty much it as far as version 1. One thing that I do have is proof of all of this, so I can export this guy to my drive. Let's get it over here, and I will open this on the computer. So let's jump over to the code real quick, and hopefully we can make some sense of what's going on behind the scenes here. I wanted to show off the deterministic resolver. So there's 3 different lenses that are running, and those have to come together somehow. So all of that happens in Kotlin and not anything to do with Gemma, which makes it repeatable across turns. And this is what decides whether it's a consensus view, a consensus with conflict, in which case the skeptic has thrown a flag of some kind in the LLM output. Whether it's ambiguous, meaning that it couldn't figure out, it couldn't agree, or there's a candidate for any one particular field, which is essentially there was one but not enough for a consensus. So yeah, all of that happens in Kotlin. And then the other big thing, well, there's a couple big things. The inference here, where is it? I closed it. Main. This is what I want. All right, so we have the 5 different surfaces. So it's going to capture behavior of the user. It's going to capture a commitment, which is essentially whether or not the user said that they're going to do something, because I'm all the time saying I'm going to, and I rarely ever actually do. Recurrence is special in that it gets a retrieved history list, which is another deterministic calculation. It's going to go, for example, and pick, if you drop a voice note Wednesday afternoon, it's going to pull the previous 3 or 4 Wednesday afternoons, if they exist, and pass those along as retrieved history for the LLM when it does the recurrence assignment. So the LLM output in that case is really just saying, is it a coincidence that it just so happened to be on the same day, or is there an actual pattern here that we can identify and track? There's a state, which is really just the cognitive condition, any sort of transition. It helps with the tags and categorization. And then there's vocabulary, because my words will drift over time. So what I called tired 2 weeks ago may not be tired today, so I wanted to be sure to capture that vocabulary drift, which is where the embedding model comes into play. Gemma embeddings captures those vocabulary terms and vectorizes them for future retrieval that I hope I will have finished up today. It is very, very close. But as of right now, it's in version 1.5 because 2 is too far away. So we'll see if it makes it. I do have several results for some stop and test points along the way. All of this is under documentation, where I've got ADRs if you want to track my wild and chaotic thinking over time. I started this project with 6 of them, and for some reason I put the UI in as number 4. That was great for the upfront build part, not so much. We've got all of the different assets here with the logo that you see on the phone earlier. If you want to go through, Claude tried to help out with the graphing my decisions and how all of those documents relate to each other, which is going to be very helpful for me later when I try to figure out what I was doing. But yeah, you can go through any of these. You can see that we have the foreground service, which is what runs as soon as you record. So this tracks different state, makes sure that the foreground model always takes precedence, so that way if there's something running in the background, then that should be canceled to let the foreground run. Then it will reschedule on the background job. But what I wanted to look at was test results. Let's see, E for embeddings. That's what I want. That's how I remember. So I ran this test 2 different times. The first output result here with the evidence, this aftermath invoice, these are just different test cases. So I set up some data to actually run through the LLM and let Gemma determine whether or not it earned its keep, basically. So for the baseline, that's just tags only, strict vocabulary, and we compare that against a hybrid approach. By we, I mean I did with Claude. The hybrid approach always returned better results using the vector retrieval for those keywords versus just the baseline alone. There was exactly one test case that tied, but it tied at ceiling. Every other one showed a significant improvement when we used the hybrid with Gemma embeddings. And that's a tiny model anyway, so I let it ride along. Gemma 4 is the one doing all of the work. And yes, for this device, I probably should have used 2, but I already cut the prompts back so much to make it function on 4. The 4.2 being, that's wrong, 4EB. I didn't want to cut the prompts again, so I dealt with the latency. I run GPU as much as possible on the back end, and pre-warm and do the foreground processing preference behind the scenes. So yeah, that is the app that I built. Hopefully that covers enough of it. I know the blog post goes into a whole lot more detail. And as always, I'm open for questions. If you guys have any or come up with anything, please let me know. And we will say this is done. All right, I almost forgot that I wanted to show the zip file that was exported. So I translated that to my Google Drive, and translate's most definitely the accurate word for that. But we can unzip this and take a look at the export. So you can see here, these are all the debug seeds with the exact text. You can see the vector embeddings that are here, the text that went in, the different lens responses, and the overall confidence, what it converged on when it was done. So you'll see those for each one of the different entries here. So you can see the debug seeds, and I was looking for the last recording because these should be in date order. Here we go. So you can see first voice note, how much I absolutely despise demos. Yes I do. So the voice note that you get, you can export that. You can also choose to delete the data off the device completely. You can delete the model off the device completely or re-download it later if you change your mind. So you have that, and then we also have, these are all of the debug entries as well as the one individual one, and this is what it looks like in storage on the device. So yeah, that's all I got. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Capture window. Oh, yeah, why not? It just got in my way.